Hello, my name is Sonya Hines with the Homeschool Network, and I'm excited to host our newest online video program, Navigating Christian Womanhood. My guest and I will direct women to valuable Christian resources and down-to-earth counsel, helping women in their journey. God's Word is going to be central and biblical truth being foundational. It's part of our online summit workshop series, which you can find on YouTube, Facebook, or at our website, homeschoolnetwork.org. I'm looking so forward to spending time with you. And today, this is our first episode of Navigating Christian Womanhood. And our guest today is Amanda Gehman. She is the chapter leader, the local chapter leader of Leah, and that stands for Loving Education at Home. So we're going to talk about that organization and how they can help you if you are a homeschooler or if you're interested in homeschooling. So we'll also share some resources on homeschooling. I homeschooled myself for about 16 years. I have 3 sons, and I did homeschooling, and Amanda and I have homeschooled together. And I tell you, it's been a really blessing to our family. It's been a real blessing to our family, as well as to my sons. So Amanda, welcome.
Thank you.
Amanda is the wife of Paul Gehman. They have 3 children, Melody, Brett, and Graham. How old are they?
Melody is 9, Brett is 7, and Graham he will be 4 in just a few weeks.
Wow. Now, how long have you been homeschooling?
I have been homeschooling my children for 5 years now. Mm-hmm. But I started homeschooling 11 years ago when I started helping my mom homeschool my brothers when she went back to work full time.
Wow. Now, you yourself were homeschooled.
Yes,
right?
I am a homeschool graduate. Okay. I graduated from the Leah program from the local chapter.
Okay.
And so I started my personal homeschooling journey back in 1994.
Okay.
Don't love admitting that, but it is what it is.
So you've been involved in homeschooling personally, as well as teaching and teaching your own children and
yes.
teaching at CoOps. You've been
yes.
in the homeschool environment for a while. Now, why did you decide to homeschool? I know you were homeschooled.
Yes.
But why did you decide to homeschool?
The transitioning from being a homeschool graduate to a homeschool mom is fairly simple. But my reasons were, I had friends who were currently putting their children in the public school, and I was watching the process, and it made me sad.
Wow.
To see a 4-year-old go get on a bus and go to school or be dropped off all day.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine the separation for that long a period. And also, my husband and I talked when I was actually pregnant for my daughter, and I told him I felt very strongly, a God-given strong feeling that I needed to homeschool and keep my children at home, which of course is the basis of homeschooling, is the Christian aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, God tells us to train up a child in the way he should go.
Yes.
And he will not depart. So now tell me about your affiliation with Leah.
Leah is Loving Education at Home. We have, in the last few years, kind of rebranded into Homeschooling New York. What I do with them is I am a support chapter leader. Okay. So I help parents with whatever they might need, whether curriculum, if they're struggling with finding a curriculum that works for them, or the New York State paperwork, which can be daunting, to say the least. I've directed with that. Last year alone, I probably helped 15 direct families sitting down together and doing paperwork. Because it can be scary when you're first starting out learning that paperwork process, especially. But we do everything from field trips to proms to graduations, and so it's a great group, and so many things that we can do. Obviously, COVID has stalled a lot of it, but we're getting back into full going again, and with this year. So it's gonna be great.
With COVID, I'm glad you mentioned that. So with COVID and parents being forced to teach at home, parents who've never homeschooled before, are you guys seeing like an upsurge in interest in Leah?
I have seen a huge leap. Parents started their kids out with virtual, and for one reason or another, whether it was their child didn't do well with virtual or the parent disliked how things were being taught or what was being taught. We have seen a huge uptick in homeschooling. Last year and even this year, right down through this year, as kids are going back to school, parents are just like, I don't want to send my child back to school. And, where it's definitely homeschooling is definitely, I don't think it's ever been bigger than it is right now.
Yeah, I know a lot of parents in public schools or private schools, when they went virtual, they were really struggling.
Yes.
So, and also, like you mentioned, I think having an opportunity to see what's being taught in school, or maybe
Yes.
what's not being taught in school, has kind of encouraged a lot of parents to move in the direction of wanting to do education at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about Leah. Like, when was it established? Give me a little brief history, please.
Leah was established in 1982.
Okay.
Before actually New York State regulations were in place. And
Right.
so for many years, people in New York were homeschooling, and it wasn't illegal, but it was not legal.
Okay.
And so there's actually stories of moms who would send their children. They had a plan. If a police officer came to the door or a CPS, they had a plan where the child would go out the back door and go to a neighbor, and then go to a different neighbor and go to, and it was, there's stories out there, and people who are actually still current in our homeschool group lived it.
Wow.
And it's really scary to think that it wasn't actually that long ago. I mean, mid to late 80s, that was happening, and right into the early 90s.
Wow.
We were still seeing that even once the regulations went into place in 1988.
So do you think, I know there's an organization, Homeschool Legal Defense.
Yes.
Is that part of the reason that organization was established?
Yes, that organization has helped homeschoolers in many states. I believe they are established in every state now.
Right.
For homeschooling rights, whether it would be because your family or your child has had an issue with CPS or legal, and they've come at you for homeschooling. They help with those situations. They also are huge advocates on the state level, fighting for bills for homeschooling and fighting against bills that will hurt homeschooling.
Right. Now, so we kind of talked about homeschooling versus public school education. So we know that there have been greater benefits with homeschooling. Yes. Can you share some of the benefits for children and for parents, homeschooling benefits?
I know personally, being homeschooled myself, you don't see the benefit when you are the child. You're like, okay, I'm just stuck with mom all day. But as an adult, I look back on that, and some of my best memories are pulled from math at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
Did my mother want to strangle me? Probably. But, those memories, you don't lose that. Yeah. And you do lose it when your child is away from you. And obviously public school is necessary for many families. Right. And absolutely, you do what you need to do for your family. But if you can homeschool, where in the moment you might not see the benefit as a parent, it's a struggle when your child is struggling with reading or struggling with math, and you just want to rip your hair out. But when you start to see those little battles and they start to overcome them, the reward is just amazing, where you're like, you personally get to see it. It's not a teacher sending home a report card with, yes, they were able to overcome such and such. Right. Where you yourself are just seeing it. It will make you cry.
And it's a blessing to be a part of that.
It is.
Right?
It's an amazing blessing to be able to see your child overcome something that they've struggled with.
I know for us, we always started our day with Bible study. They were part of Awana. Yes. So they have Bible memorization to do. And that's how we started our day. So the benefit for us was, it wasn't just the academics. It was more holistic. It was like their spiritual life, right? As well as their character, and then education. Yes. Which, was obviously important, but you got to work on those other aspects. So that was wonderful. What about the cost?
The cost varies per family, really. It all depends on how you want to teach. I am personally very curriculum based. Okay. So I have to have a curriculum for each subject. That's just a personal thing. I know many homeschoolers that don't do that. They go to their library and they decide what books they're going to use, and they borrow them from their library and use that for the year. And Liverpool Library especially has a ton of homeschool resources. Okay. If you're out there looking and you're wanting to look at stuff before you purchase, they have a nice section of homeschool resources, which has been really great. When you're curriculum based, you can spend anywhere between, I would say, probably $300 to $500 for the younger grades. This year alone, my personal curriculum cost me about $350. Okay. For 3 children. Okay, that's not bad. No, it was not bad at all. And of course, you reuse as your kids get older. You all of a sudden you're
Pass
like,
it on down.
oh look, I already have the teacher's book, so I don't got to rebuy
Right.
that. I just got to rebuy the student book, which
Yeah.
is like $15.
Yeah.
And so, obviously cost gets less as they get older. And it's also great because there's also used curriculum online. People will sell it. There's Facebook groups just for used curriculum. There's obviously curriculum sales that usually are held in the spring. Every once in a while you'll find one in the fall. I don't know of one coming up, but I know we had normally there's like 3 or 4 a year. I think this year we only had 2, with COVID, obviously that stopped a lot of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then of course your local chapter, a lot of times we either have curriculum. I personally have curriculum that people who have stopped homeschooling have given me. If anybody needs this, please give it out, and I have some that I have given to people as they've needed it. But, so a lot of times your local chapter leaders will either have some to help you with or know where you can get some at a very reasonable price.
Now, another question that, there's a couple of things I want to ask.
Yeah.
Because the one question when I was homeschooling, and you know what that question is.
Paperwork?
Well, not the paper. Well, that's one thing. So we'll talk about that as well. What about socialization?
Oh, my favorite question.
Yeah, that's the question.
That is the all-time best question in the world. Yes, that is obviously the number one thing we get asked. Well, how do you socialize your children?
Yeah.
I love coming back with, well, how do they socialize in school being told to be quiet at a desk for 8 hours?
Yeah.
And even in the hallway, they're being redirected. So what do you do for that? Well, they play sports. We have sports.
Yeah.
We have soccer, basketball, and volleyball that is all Leah Christian-based, all competitive, which is great. And I believe we have swimming and archery still. I have not checked to find that that's still current, but it was a couple of years ago. And so obviously, we have sports. We also have co-ops. And the co-ops is great because not only do you get help for maybe a class you're not prepared to teach, but your child gets to meet their peers, their own age groups.
Yeah.
And another really great thing about homeschooling that I love is your peers is not always your age.
Yes.
I had friends when I was in high school. I didn't even realize until I graduated that they were like 3 years younger than me.
Wow.
And older. And so, you don't realize, so you get that really nice, large group of friends, and they're a mix of age groups.
Right.
And so, which is really great with homeschooling, is you don't have that, when you graduate with your group. You get to know everybody. And so that's been really great. And of course, a lot of homeschool groups do field trips, which is great because your kids get to maybe learn something if it's an educational thing, or if it's a fun field trip, obviously, then you get to just do a lot of fun things together. And I mean, years ago, we did a field trip to a museum.
Okay.
And it was just like a kids' play museum. And the kids just got to play. And parents, we get to sit around with our coffee and have parent conversations and not hear mom 60 times in an hour.
Yeah.
And so, those are definitely experiences that I think you even miss, even maybe on the private school front, is you don't get that community of parents.
Yes. And
so, which is one thing I've loved about homeschooling is anytime there's a question, there's always a veteran mom who I can call.
Yes.
And so, there's always somebody that's already done it or is doing it, but has been doing it longer. And so my mom is one of them, being that she homeschooled. My youngest brother graduated last year. Okay. So she homeschooled for 27 years.
Wow.
By the time she was finished. Yeah. Wow. It was a long time.
Yeah, that connection with the parental connection makes a huge difference. And that's also another thing that Leah offers, because they're a great resource if you have a question, about homeschooling. And as far as socialization, my response to people was always, I don't have a problem controlling who my kids interact with initially. Yeah. Right. Until I get them grounded in who they are and what they believe. Yep. That was really important to us as a family. So that and also in terms of their character, right? I couldn't say, well, my son's been hanging out with Johnny and that's why he behaves that way. It was kind of, oh, okay, that's just part of your character that we really need to work on, So that again was important to us, that we didn't have to worry about outside influences in terms of character and their growth spiritually. So we talked a little bit about resources.
Yes.
I know that there's a lot of curriculum options as well as curriculum sales that take place. I'm not sure if they still do in light of COVID. So can we talk about curriculum as well as, let's talk about that first.
Curriculum is all over the board. I mean, basically, if one doesn't work for you, there are 200 more to pick from.
Okay.
Some personal favorites is for like math. I've always done Math UC with my kids, and it's worked out really well. The IEW for your literature and English has, is a great resource.
Right.
What I love about that one is there's different levels of it. So if one of them doesn't work for your kids, you can just, same company, but switch to
That's
a different
great
one.
Curriculum. Yeah.
Yes, it is an amazing curriculum. And so ChristianBook.com has so many different curriculums for you to choose from. You can pick your grade or your age group. What I love about the curriculum also is it's not grade perfect. If your child is falling a little bit behind in one subject, you don't have to keep them in that grade. You can pick from the year before and have them either redo or pick a different curriculum in that same subject.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be where your child feels like they're falling behind, because most of the books do not have the grades on them. They have a level on them.
A level, yes.
And your child could be anywhere between level 1 and level 10. And so that has been a great thing where, my daughter struggles in the reading area. So she's a little bit behind in that, but she would not know that to look at her book, because her book does not tell her where she is. She knows what grade she's in, but she doesn't have to look at her book and be like, well, why doesn't my book say that?
Yeah.
And so, or why does my book say I'm not in that grade? And so that has been excellent. And Rainbow Resources is another one that it has a lot of curriculum, and a lot of them overlap.
Okay.
But they both have amazing curriculum options to look at on their websites. So obviously, pre-COVID, we had conventions, which was nice because you got to go and look at all the curriculum. And so, but unfortunately, that was canceled last year and this year. And so, but the plan is to restart it in 2022.
I hope so.
Yes,
yeah, that
I
would
do
be
too.
great. So let's see. So there's ChristianBook.com.
Yes.
And there's Rainbow Resource.
Yes.
Those are
the two main ones
online that are available. Okay. CoOps. You mentioned CoOps earlier, and the benefits of children being able to, do school together, but in a homeschool setting. So
yes, do school together in a homeschool setting. A lot of your teachers in the co-ops are most of them are other homeschool moms who maybe have more of an expertise in one area. I mean, we have homeschool moms who are nurses. So to teach a biology course is great, or even retired teachers themselves. And so they come in and they help with the harder math and the harder sciences. I'd have no clue where to start if I had to teach my child physics. I would be completely confused. And so having somebody in a co-op who is more skilled in that area has been great. And I know a lot of families, especially as your kids get into high school, that's where we see a lot of parents going, okay, I don't just want a co-op, I need a co-op, because their child is advancing further than what they feel like they can teach at home.
And other options, I know we use tutoring.
Yes.
And there's also online courses that kids can do.
Yes. I know like Liberty University has a great online program that they do. That is the one that I am the most familiar with.
Okay.
Is Liberty U, but I know a lot of other colleges offer homeschool support as well that you can do. And some of them offer full on where you can homeschool your child at home, but they can take their entire high school from their computer, which is basically virtual. And so if you pulled your child because of virtual, that probably won't be an option for you. But if it's something that your child can thrive at, it is a really good option, because then they have a teacher that they can contact, especially for the harder subjects as they get older.
So I think like with Liberty, if I'm not mistaken, if they do their high school work through Liberty, they're kind of automatically guaranteed acceptance on the college level into their
based on grades. Yes.
Yeah, based on grades, obviously.
As long as their grades are kept up to a certain point. Yes, I believe that is true. That's what I had heard.
And also Cedarville University. My boys did some classes through Cedarville, and you had to have like a certain grade point average, like on your SATs or ACTs. Speaking of SATs and ACTs and standardized testing,
yes,
can you speak to that just a little bit in terms of requirements to your school district? And
yes, standardized testing, from grade 1, you have to do a narrative report to your school, basically saying that this is what my child has completed.
Okay.
They are strong in these subjects, maybe not so strong in these subjects. And, it's very brief. One quick paragraph is all you need. As I get into 4th and 5th grade, you have to start doing standardized testing.
Okay.
Standardized testing, there are many options to pick from.
Right.
There are some that actually the public school offer that your
Okay.
child can sit for. Private schools offer them that your child can sit for. I know like Faith Heritage has offered in the past, homeschoolers can come sit for a standardized test.
Okay.
There are some that you can offer in your home, but you need a teacher to give it.
Okay.
And my favorite is the California Achievement Test, which is something that as a parent I can give my student. Right. I do not need a teacher to view it. My student takes the test and then I send it in for grading, and then they send me back the grade, which goes to the school system. And there are, I think there are 12 or 13 options now.
Wow.
For standardized testing that you can do in your home.
Okay.
And so, which is great. And you can do it online, or you can request a paper copy, whatever your student is most comfortable with. My brother, his last few years that he did it, he preferred the online version.
Okay.
So it made it nice. I am very old school. I like everything paper. And so I will probably order the paper one until my child tells me I don't want this anymore. And that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, one thing about homeschooling, so depending on what district you're in, if you're interested in homeschooling, you have to submit a letter to your school district.
Yes.
Saying that you're letting them know your intent.
Yes.
To homeschool.
Yes.
And so the reports that we have to turn in, those are quarterly reports.
You have to do a letter of intent and then an IHIP.
Okay.
Which your IHIP is basically your plan for the entire year.
Okay.
And so your letter of intent is very brief, one sentence, my name, your name, your student's name, grade they're in, and that you plan on homeschooling them.
Right.
And then your IHIP is the curriculum that you're using, or whatever you're using. For reading, if you don't have a curriculum, but you plan on using library resources,
right.
You just put in the library resources, variety of books. And then your quarterly reports is what you would do each quarter throughout the year. And in those quarterly reports, you would then list out, my child read this book, this book, this book. And so, it's a little hard when you're first starting out.
Right.
After you do your first couple, you find that you pretty much breeze through them after that. But of course, the school districts take those in, and then you get a letter back from them saying that they have been accepted. We have run into the occasional time where a school will say they are denied.
Okay.
The school cannot actually deny them. You might get a letter saying they are. The school actually, all they can do is ask for either more information, and that is where your regulations come into play.
Okay.
You would go back to your regulations and you would see, do I actually have to give them this information?
Okay.
And, the New York State regulations, it can be a little daunting. That's where Leah a lot of times comes into play. We will help you understand what you need to do. Or if you're just completely lost, that's when you call your chapter leader and we say, no, you gave them everything you need, send it back. And then I've actually highlighted areas of the regulation and emailed it to the parent, attach this to your email. And then the school gets it and they can see that what they want, what this parent sent was actually correct. And, every once in a while you got to tweak things a little bit. Right. But for the most part, some schools like to try to scare you a little bit. But, that's also where Homeschool Legal Defense comes into play, and where they are your legal team to help you with that.
Yeah, so that's an organization you have to be a member of, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But it's definitely beneficial because
Absolutely.
You never know when you'll run into some type of legal issue with
the most peaceful thing on my refrigerator is that card that says Homeschool Legal Defense and that phone number. If I ever get a phone call or if somebody ever shows up at my door, and being that I grew up in the early 90s and that was something that was a very real possibility,
right?
That obviously is something that will kind of give you a little bit of a feeling. And so having that on my refrigerator, knowing that I can say, if somebody ever turned me in, somebody came to my door, I can say, ma'am, no, you cannot come in, but I am going to call my lawyer. I will be right back, and call that number. and they will either send somebody or they themselves will call and get to the bottom of the situation.
Yeah. So, so just in closing, so the Leah website, for more information, is that leah.org?
Leah.org is the main website.
Okay.
For my personal website that we use for our Leah is Northern Onondaga Leah.
Okay.
If you just throw that into Google, our group comes up.
Okay.
And so, but the main Leah website is leah.org. That website will give you a lot of resources for HSLDA.
Right.
And it'll also redirect you to different aspects of homeschooling and also to different chapters that might be in your area.
Okay. Now, will they include like local co-ops, or where can people go to find out about local co-ops?
Leah.org does not have the co-ops unless it's a Leah co-op.
Okay.
A Leah co-op is basically a chapter that is devoted just to the co-op.
Okay.
Such as Sports Leah is devoted just to sports. You cannot join it unless you are playing a sport.
Okay.
And so Northern Onondaga Leah, we sponsor a co-op, but we are not a co-op Leah. I can accept members who don't attend the co-op for support wise, and for the field trips or for the history fair, the Christmas parties, whatever we're doing that year, they can participate in all of those.
Okay.
Co-op wise, your best bet is to find a local chapter, Leah chapter, and get in touch with them. I generally know of different co-ops in the area that, unfortunately, a lot of them are full this year.
Okay.
And so, but every year, each co-op will take more kids.
Right.
And so, or if you are somebody who's been, who's interested in maybe getting a new co-op going, we can offer training and insight on how to do that.
Now, do you have an email that's affiliated with Leah that if someone wanted to contact you about local co-ops or for more information?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just take it to my personal email because it's just easier that way than trying to keep track of 3 or 4 emails.
Okay.
And so my personal email is mandylyn290@gmail.com.
Okay.
And yeah, absolutely. If you email that, I will answer any questions you may have, can get you in touch with a different co-op in the area if I find out that there's an opening in one.
Okay, and we can put that information on the website. Well, Amanda, thank you. Thank you for sharing your own personal homeschool experience, as well as thank you for your dedication to Leah. As a former member of Leah, I appreciate, the dedication that people put into that organization. Again, so thank you for joining us on Navigating Christian Womanhood. Again, if you want more information on homeschooling, we'll have some information on our website. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.